Hi everyone, we're back on to painting the barbarian today. I'm going to try and do this one a bit more with live audio to see if it works out better. So if I waffle or make some errors, then sorry about that. So we're going to start by painting some of the NMM steel today on the shoulder pad. So we're going to use some slightly different colours for this. So we're going to base with this Anthracite Grey and Green Grey. So these two colours. So we're going to mix them 50-50 and use that as our initial layer. Using a little bit of stippling as well to try and fade the colour out. But we're going to blend this colour from the black into it in just a moment. But I want to sort of create a little bit of stipply texturing. So we want it more solid at the top. So this area here, this is going to be our brightest spot on the model. The shoulder pad rather. So we're going to really try to focus our lights around this area. So we want that quite a strong light there. And as you can see, the bottom area is going to be dark. Now all these edges are going to catch some light. So we want to paint the edges. So as Vince would say, all the raised areas and the sticky outy bits. So thank you, Vince. So the next stage for this is for us to try and blend that colour now into the black. So we're taking our initial base coat and we're just adding a good brush full of water. So it's thin, but it's not overly thin, so it's still going to show some, but it's going to be enough to knock out a lot of the black and blend it into that initial base coat mix we had. to always push or pull from the black to our colour that we painted. Now some areas we don't want to overdo it, as in this area here on the model is going to be the darkest of the metal area, so we're going to try and leave some of the black in there and inside some of the edges as well. We are pulling the paint from just outside the colour into the colour. So most of the paint settles on the edge of the transition and inside the colour we've already painted, if that makes sense. So we're coming in now with pure green grey, which is a sort of very much a mid-tone. So we're going to sort of, this will look brighter than the colour we've already painted though. So it should work well. So again, we want to focus on the main areas of light here, which is definitely this top, and we're just going to get smaller and smaller with these highlights up to quite a bright highlight is where we want to get to. And again, we're just going to stipple a little bit of the edges, but we want to focus our painting and where we're actually leaving paint to this top section. The same technique as before, so we're going to pull from just outside where the paint is into the paint that we've just put on. The process of this is very much to load the brush with the very dilute paint, then wick it off on a paper towel so that you have very little paint on the brush. And sometimes it feels like nothing's happening when you're putting the paint on, but there is paint on there. Something is happening. It can just take 3 or 4 layers or passes to actually see any results. So quite often when you put the first layer on, you can stand back and look at it and think, well, nothing happened. But if you experiment with wiping the brush on your thumbnail and then letting it dry, you'll actually see there'll be a little tint, a little bit of colour on your fingernail. And that's what's happening on the model. You're slowly tinting it, and you're slowly blending the previous colour into your new colour. Right, so to intensify the lights, we're going to start adding in this blue grey, which is very much a very light whitish blue grey, and this is going to help add the brightness we need for the NMM. And again, we've just mixed this 50-50 in with the dark green grey, which was our second coat we've just put on. So we're now going to be starting to work towards this colour. Very much trying to, we're focusing now on much smaller highlights, but to be quite intense, quite light in value. These highlights will look bigger once we've blended them, because the blending naturally will spread the highlight out a bit. But we're trying to focus now on really building bright shiny points on the armour. We still want the edges to have light, so don't neglect highlighting those again. And this paint is not thinned down at all. This is the AK Interactive 3rd Gen paint, and it's the only moisture it has on it is what's coming off of the wet palette. So I've not mixed any water in with it. It's just as it is on the wet palette. So we've added in even more of the blue-grey now. We're just literally trying to paint smaller and smaller highlights and get brighter and brighter spots on this panel. So on these lower areas, I literally just want to pick out some edges with this colour, just so that they've got a little bit of shine, but really not a lot. So we're going through the same process now. I've mixed up a glaze of the colour that we've just used, and we're literally just going to try and blend that little highlight back in to what we had. So I thinned this glaze down a little bit more than the other glazes because I want it to start getting smoother now, and this colour has got a lot of white in it, so I'm trying to avoid it going chalky. So I start thinning the glazes down a little bit more now. Right, so we've added even more of the blue-grey now, so it's getting really quite light. So we want to really start focusing on very small and bright lights now. So we're really trying to, like on this panel, I'm trying to really emphasize these edge points as being quite sharp now and quite reflective. This glaze is really quite thin. At this stage, this is where I've got to be careful it doesn't go chalky. So I've thinned it down. But if it does go chalky, we can always glaze in with one of the previous colours without so much whiting. Right, so we're going to try and glaze some better transitions in and a little bit more of a blue colour in. So we're going back to this anthracite grey, which is a dark sort of bluey grey. And we're going to blend this time from the highlights into the shadows. And I've thinned this down a lot. It's very much like coloured water. So if I show you on my thumb, this is how much I'm putting on. Better, so you can see a bit of colour. Sort of how thin it is. So 2 passes and it's just about tinting and showing. So as I said, we're going to be working from the highlight back to the shadow this time. So the final step now, I'm going to one of my favourite colours, Amethyst Blue, which is a rich, dark purpley blue colour, more purple than blue, definitely. So I want to add a bit more vibrancy into the shadow areas, because at the moment they look still quite black. So I want to add a bit of colour in there to try and just give them a little something. So this is very thin down. Just glaze it into the darkest recesses. Is you're never really overdoing it. It's such small increments of colour that you're putting on. You can just keep going till you're ready to stop. So that's where we are. So that's going to work out just fine with that steel. A slightly different steel, a greeny purpley steel, but hopefully you've enjoyed watching that process.